I'm truly honored to welcome Mr. S. Giridhar for this wonderful event. And the book says he has written The Ordinary People, Extraordinary Teachers. And the title actually is The Heroes of Real India. I think Radhika said the real heroes of India, but it's the heroes of real India. And it's very apt because it describes what the real India is. And without wasting any time, I'll give a very brief introduction to our speaker, our esteemed speaker, and then a small excerpt, and then it's over to Mr. Giridhar. Welcome, sir, once again. And Mr. Giridhar is Chief Operating Officer of the University, one of the earliest members of Azim Premji Foundation. Giridhar joined the foundation 18 years ago after over 2 decades in a business management role. So basically, it's wonderful to see corporate honcho taking this role in the education sector, and that too, what I don't know what to call it, but inclusive education and part of the real India, I would call it. When the foundation established the Azim Premji University, he became the first registrar and COO. He has for many years now been writing regularly, drawing from his rich experience and observations on the ground. Mr. Girdhar's passion is cricket, and he has co-authored 2 acclaimed books on cricket, namely Mid-Wicket Tales from Trumpet to Tendulkar and From Mumbai to Durban, India's Greatest Test. So these are 2 wonderful books on cricket. That's quite an interesting dimension of your personality, sir. And about this his work. He has visited hundreds of rural schools across the country and has shared some wonderful stories, achievement, and work done by teachers and other persons who are truly the unsung heroes. This book records contribution of unsung heroes in preparing disadvantaged children to learn and grow. And lastly, I'd like to read a paragraph from a review or an excerpt written by Ms. Uma Vasudevan Dasgupta, who is a bureaucrat in Karnataka. So I'll just read it very quickly before I hand over to our esteemed speaker. When we talk about the scale of the government school system, 1 million schools, millions of teachers and children, we often forget that we are talking about real children with real lives and real women and men who help them to learn and grow. Girdhar's book throws light upon this aspect, improving the system at a scale that can be done by supporting teachers, improving their uh, working conditions, they're freeing from the non-teaching work, reforming teacher education, strengthening professional development, building professional networks for them, and not the least of all, identifying and appreciating good practices by dedicated teachers and such in such Beacon schools. So this book contains so many of these wonderful examples, and ordinary people do wonderful work. They're not expecting any awards and medals, but at the ground level, they understand the situation and do this work. So at a time when parents are at home with children because of the COVID crisis and the lockdown, people have started to realize that school is about much more than the lessons. The world over, there is also a growing realization that public services can function well only when they are resourced well and supported by all. This would also be the right time to appreciate the extraordinary and essential work that the government school teachers do against all odds. This is very important, against all odds in caring for India's children, keeping them safe, helping them learn, and preparing them for the world. So, we always hear criticism that the government schools are not functioning, the teachers are not coming a lot. But yes, there are a lot of unsung heroes, which we will talk about. And as Radhika said, after the talk, there will be a small Q&A, and Radhika or Mr. Ramamurthy will coordinate. So over to you, Mr. Giridhar, and thank you once again. Thank you all participants.
Good evening, everybody. Firstly, thank you to AMA, Ahmedabad Management Association, for inviting me to your meeting and giving me an opportunity to talk to you about the book. It is a privilege and I look forward to sharing some time with you and sharing my experiences. Mr. Radia has given a very generous introduction to me, and I thank him for it, although I may not be entirely deserving of all that. I must tell you that while he mentioned the cricket books and he mentioned the book on teachers, I must say there is a big difference between the two. The teacher's book is actually like a pilgrimage to those hundreds of schools. And I am extremely fortunate that those teachers allowed me to come into their schools, spend time with their children, observe their classes, talk to me about their lives, about their teaching. So I think it was like a pilgrimage, and therefore, when I've written this book, I must tell you that while it is meant to be a very objective, qualitative, deep dive study, you cannot, when you read it, get away from the fact that for the author, this was some kind of a pilgrimage, and I don't want to hide that either. Um, when I joined the foundation, we were a very, very young and small institution because Mr. Premji just established Azim Premji Foundation, as you know, by putting in his personal wealth because he wanted an institution that will contribute to a better society in India. So the principles that are enshrined in our constitution of a just, equitable, humane, and sustainable society is what we are all working towards, the vision of that. And we were very clear that working with education and contributing to a good quality education for every child in the country would be actually the path towards realizing that vision or contribute towards realizing that vision. um, when we began, we were very clear that we will work with government schools and we will work in the areas, more disadvantaged areas. So naturally, quite naturally, we realized that we will be working in rural India, in the smaller districts, in the more disadvantaged parts of India. And we realized that we will be directly working with the government school teachers. As a foundation, we were also very clear that we would be there in a manner that we can augment and supplement and contribute to the efforts of the government. Obviously, we did not want to do something separate and all that, but wanted to do whatever we wanted to do. We wanted to integrate with what the government was doing and contribute to that. The second thing was that we were very clear that we were not going to build islands of excellence. There was no interest in us to say that, look, here are some things that we can do separately, see how we are doing it, can you do it? No. Our interest was in saying, can we work with the system, with all the constraints and opportunities that is there in a large and complex system like India, and then see whether we can do anything by which something sustainable can emerge out of it. So the principle was to work deep, sustained, hard, continuously in the chosen geography. And that is how we began work. So we began with some districts in Karnataka, and then after we worked for some time, we also went to some states like Uttarakhand, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh. Interestingly, we also did some good work, I must tell you, in our Banaskantha and Sabarkantha districts of Gujarat. And we have worked intensively with the district education authorities and the teachers and the district system there for some years. Around 2009, after about 7 or 8 years of this kind of work on the ground in a dozen districts, we also realized that it is time that we must contribute in a manner of building capacity and resource of people on the ground through an institution that prepares students. So that is the genesis of the Azim Premji University. So around 2010, we did all the necessary procedures to start Karnataka's first private autonomous university, which is a part of Azim Premji Foundation. So the university is also a part of the philanthropic initiative of Azim Premji Foundation. You can see that if 85% of all the operating expenses come from the foundation and only about 10 to 12% will come from students or other revenues, simply because this is also a philanthropic initiative where we think we will provide education on subjects like education, development, public policy and governance, development law, etc. to students so that they can go back into the social sector and contribute on the ground. And I'm very happy to state at the beginning that in the last 7 or 8 years, the 1500 to 1800 graduates who have emerged from the university, 95% of them are working across the length and breadth of the country in the social sector. And that is a matter of great satisfaction. During these 8 or 9 years that I told you after 2010, our fieldwork has also dramatically expanded. So you might remember when I began, I said we were working in a dozen districts, but today we are in 50 districts. When I joined the foundation in 2002, I actually came from Wipro and joined Azim Premji Foundation, and I consider myself very fortunate that I made that career move because it's been very fulfilling to me. When I joined, we were such a small organization that I've written in the foreword of my book that I once went on a field visit, got a tarbuja, and I could cut the tarbuja into a dozen pieces, and every member of the organization had a piece to it. We were such a small organization. Today we are 1500 people, so you can imagine how many tarbujas, how many watermelons we need. But that was how we began. Small, but we were very clear we were going to be an operating organization. We were not going to be merely just a funding organization. We would be using our funds, doing work on the ground, working intensively, deeply with the government system, which is how much of our work has happened. And today, for example, there are over 1500 people across 50 districts in 6 or 7 states working closely and deeply with teachers. Now I come to a bit of a background about how this book happened. You see, as you can see, I was deeply involved in the field work from the beginning, from the first day of my life at Azim Premji Foundation. And even in those days, I used to see what kind of constraints are there on the ground. And I would find occasionally, and not occasionally, fairly regularly, good teachers, outstanding teachers. And I would write the odd piece, 1,000 words in an opinion piece in the paper, write about things I saw, etc. But after 2010, when I took over my responsibility at university, I stepped back from the field. So much of my work was in the university, and I would only very occasionally go on specific visits to the field. So for the past 7 or 8 years, I had distanced myself from our field institute's work while concentrating on contributing to building the university that we had established. Around 2017, I remember we had a board meeting of the foundation. 2017, February, I remember very clearly, or was it December 2016? I remember very clearly. You know, we have our methods and ways of doing some kind of analysis regularly and periodically on the impact of our work, how are teachers responding, how are children's learning, are children learning better? And there are various kinds of quantitative assessments that we do to get ourselves a satisfaction or an understanding of whether we are making the kind of progress we need or not. But you know, those are all quantitative reports, and the juice and the warmth of what is happening on the ground can only be captured when somebody does a qualitative study. So there was this feeling in the board meeting that, look, can we not have something by which we are able to present to the larger world stories and of the kind of people we are working with, the people who are making it happen on the ground. And I volunteered and said, look, I like to write, I've done these odd pieces, but I would like to deeply involved in the qualitative study. So I literally volunteered myself. So when I volunteered myself, it meant that I had to devote some time away from my regular work at the university, but I was able to do that. It meant also going to the field. Now, qualitative studies are such, you know, you can take a handful, do a deep ethnographic study, take it and do that kind of work. But in my mind, I was very clear that if I have to do this kind of a study, I wanted to do it with a reasonably large number of people. I also said that we'll draw some framework of how I will do it. So I'm explaining to you what the book, how the book was framed. So it will give you an idea. So we decided that, look, we may be working in 50 districts now, but you know, there are a dozen districts where we have been working for the past 14, 15 years. Why don't we go back to some of those older districts where we have been working for a long time and see what we can capture there through this qualitative study? So when I looked at those dozen districts, I said, why don't we pick 5 districts out of those dozen older districts? And in each of those districts, let us look at each of the blocks of the district. So in a district, roughly there can be 6, 7 blocks, 8 blocks, 5 blocks, etc. So we said that means around say 5 districts, 30 blocks, 32 blocks. Why don't we go to each of these 32 blocks? And when we go to each of these 32 blocks, why don't we go and meet a sample of what we people think are good teachers? So my groundwork was that I reactivated all my old contacts and friends in the foundation in all these districts and blocks. And I said, look, guys, if we want to do a qualitative study of excellent teachers, outstanding teachers, why don't you suggest to me from each of your blocks 30 to 35 teachers who you think are doing great work? And I will not complicate it for you people. Just tell me those 30, 35 teachers where A, they are making a huge change in their school. B, they are excellent teachers. C, they are able to influence others also around them. And where you think the school is also doing well in basic learning and larger purposes of education. So, when I went to these people and said, can you tell me? I was surprised, but in each of these blocks, the people were able to come back very quickly and give me 30, 35 names. So I had about 750 names already in a huge Excel sheet running from all the blocks, 700, 750 names. And I said, oh, this is more than I can chew. So then I said that, okay, why don't we do this? From each block, why don't we take a representative of about 5 to 7 teachers? Or 8 teachers or 10 schools. And that is how I was able to draw up a list of 110 schools across the 5 districts, representing most of the blocks, with whom I said I want to spend some time. Starting in March 2017 and going up to November 2018, I had the privilege of visiting 110 of these wonderful schools. In the process, it was not meeting 110 teachers. क्योंकि क्या होता है कि when you go to a school और आपके लोगों ने कहा कि सर स्कूल में ये टीचर अच्छे हैं, आप जाते हो वहां और आपको पता चलता है कि यार मेरे मित्र ने तो एक टीचर के बारे में बताया था स्कूल में, but I can find 2, 3 excellent teachers. So in the process, my work would expand and I ended up meeting about 275 teachers in these 110 schools. My work would be to meet those teachers, build a rapport, allow them to talk to me. And we have not met before, but you can make out मैं बहुत ही साधारण आदमी हूँ, तो they also felt this man is a साधारण आदमी. They felt somehow some kind of rapport, and I think I was extremely fortunate that I could have a conversation with them where they could share completely with me, open up and share with me. So all credit to those teachers for their generosity because they shared with me. Then they said, "आइए हमारे class आके देखिए." And I would sit in a corner as unobtrusively as possible and observe. And I would then go around the school, observe the midday meal. I will see how the grounds are being maintained, how the assembly is being done, how the teachers and children are interacting, how teacher and teacher is interacting, what kind of punctuality is there, what kind of discipline is there, how there is no corporal punishment at all there. किसी के हाथ में छड़ी का नाम भी नहीं है, बच्चों में आपस में लड़ाई नहीं है. I could see various things apart from what's happening in the class with language, mathematics and EVS and other subject wise. So as I was seeing this, I would make notes. And I've written this in my book, that for me, one of the most moving things is obviously when I spend a day or two there and I come back with all these notes, I have to make sense of the notes in the evening in my room. And when I used to read the notes in my room, the beauty of their work and the greatness of their work and the courage of these people and the determination of these people will speak to me through those notes. My notes took a life of their own, and the heroes of my book started taking shape. When I did this qualitative study, starting with this qualitative study, I had no intention that इसमें से एक किताब बनेगी. I thought I will go there, meet people, make some notes, come back, prepare some report, and share it with my group of people. But when I saw the names of the people, Dhyan Singh Rawat, Hemvat Bahuguna, Anita Rawat, these names became a part of my life. I know each of them and I remember them as though I met them yesterday. And suddenly, from my notes, I realized this is not just an internal report of 40 pages or 50 pages. This is something that should be shared in the form of actually a proper book narrating their stories. And those 110 people, became 110 schools, and those 250 people became stories for me. And then as I was writing it, I started writing one or two articles about them. So I would write in the first post about some teacher. I would write in Deccan Herald about some other teacher. I will write in the Wire about some other teacher. Like this, it'll happen 1,000 words each. But back of it, creating a structure and story. I said, how do I organize it? And then we started discussing. And I realized that all these people, the heroes I have met, I didn't want to use the word rural India because rural India means there is this urban India and rural India. I said, no. What I'm talking to people about is real India. This is where real India is. This is where children who only opportunities to study in government schools come in front of us. And therefore, I realized that these heroes are because they overcome all constraints. They do not recognize any obstacle. They are so courageous that they take risks. They don't care about their own personal reputation. All they care about is every child must learn. Every child is capable of learning. It is my responsibility to do the best for my children. The last child in the classroom must be learning as well as the first child in the classroom. There is no other option for these children except my government school. Their parents cannot afford anything except the government school. Whatever the constraints I have, I must do the best with my school. I must somehow get the community support for my school. I must somehow invite the community to participate in my school. I must somehow get the district education officer to understand what I need for my school. If I need to put something from my pocket, I must put it from my pocket for my school. I can go on like this. But the other strand is also, I must learn every day. I must become a better teacher every day. If I tried some techniques today or some pedagogy today which didn't work, I must go home and analyze why that pedagogy did not work. Can I tomorrow come back with some other pedagogy? If I tried some teaching learning materials and exercises in the class which were not satisfactory to me today, can I tomorrow try some other teaching learning material and exercises that will make me reach the child? Was I able to reach every child today? Do I know which child did not understand today? Can I do something with that child tomorrow? So the classroom planning, preparation, that is also there. So as I saw all this unraveling, I realized actually that my heroes can actually be put in 5 chapters. So my first chapter was the head teacher of a school is like the CEO of an organization. हेड टीचर का 360 डिग्री का नजरिया रहता है. So on one side, he has to look at working with his children, making sure the classrooms are organized, making sure the timetable is going as per plan, making sure the assembly is going as per plan, making sure the midday meals are all organized, making sure there is punctuality, making sure that the community is with him, making sure the community is contributing to the school, making sure parents are participating with them. Therefore, the head teacher is actually the CEO of the school. In fact, he is also a person or she is also a person who doesn't have immediate help on hand. क्योंकि क्या होता है हमारे गांव के स्कूल का जो क्लोजेस्ट बीईओ कभी कभी वो 200 स्कूल का इंचार्ज होते हैं और मान लीजिए एक बीईओ अपने एक स्कूल में 2 साल में या 3 साल में एक बार जा सकते हैं. So literally this person works with the gram panchayat, he works with the block education officer, he works with a cluster officer, he works with the community, but he or she is literally running the school like a CEO. जब मैंने इन स्कूलों में टाइम बिताया तो मुझे एहसास हुआ कि these people actually champion managers. Their also ownership is so high. So I remember as the book was taking shape, Indian Institute of Management had called me for a seminar and they asked me to describe these attributes. And I had done a presentation for them and I had used some notes. And you won't believe it, literally that note became the opening chapter of this first section of my book on extraordinary teachers of real India. And it became, the first chapter became the head teacher of a school is the CEO. To give it flesh and blood, I chose a dozen stories from the 110 I visited and placed them before them. So you had some head teacher from Rajasthan, you had some head teacher from Uttarakhand, you had some head teacher from North Karnataka, all of them stories that people could connect to the principles I was building in the beginning of the chapter. My second section I realized is that one of the reasons these 110, these 270 teachers in these 110 schools, you see, I may have visited only 275 teachers in 110 schools, but remember, they were actually representing a much larger pool. So we must not forget that while my book is told through the story of 110 schools and 200 teachers, it is actually representing about 15, 20, 25% of our government schools. Over the past many years, the media has obviously finds it easier to talk of the negative aspects. एक जगह कहीं let me give this example for a few minutes. I will distract, but it's important to place this before you. You see, when I went across to these schools, there is not a single place where the teachers are not present or punctual. Every school, every teacher is present, every teacher is punctual, children are there, attendance is high. So, but the popular myth is, oh, there is a lot of truancy in schools, in government schools. Nothing of the kind. I have stated it absolutely clearly and bluntly in my book that if you people really want to empathize with the heroes of my book, the first thing you must accept and recognize is they are punctual. There is no truancy, and they represent a large proportion of teachers in the country. In fact, some couple of years ago, there was a detailed study covering 2,700 villages across 5 states, and they found out that the absenteeism was less, teacher absence was less than 2.5% for any reason. If at all they were absent, it was for either with permission or it was because they had gone to attend a meeting. So the popular narrative ki government school ki teachers is a complete bunkum, and I have as bluntly as possible disposed of that myth. The second thing which used to hurt me is, oh, people go to private schools because it's better. No. In the when you go to real India, you will see a number of places where the qualifications of the teachers of the government school, the facilities in a government school, and the learning levels of children is as good and better, of often much better than the others. Unfortunately, a lot of parents feel, oh, here, if I send my children, they will learn English. Or if I send my children to the school, oh, they wear ties and shoes, etc. Or sometimes, sadly, they even say, I send my children to these schools because mere biradari mein kya sochenge. One of them, in fact, and I quoted that parent, said, mujhe log kanjoos samjhenge. So there are such reasons why people are moved to private schools. It's a tragedy, because I think for many of these kind of parents who are grocers, small kirana shop owners, small tempo drivers and all that, they earn 7,500 to 8,000 rupees in a month. And out of that, they take away 1,500 rupees to put their boy in a private school. लड़की के तो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल भेजते हैं और बॉय को प्राइवेट स्कूल भेजते हैं. I've written that standing in a turning in the road in a village in Uttarkashi, a group of children were going to private schools. Girls went by to government school, boys were going to private school. They came and stopped near me. I said, क्यों रुके हो यहाँ? They said, my school bus will come and pick up. मैंने कहा स्कूल कितना दूर है? 1.5 किलोमीटर दूर है. But they would wait for the school bus also. So I said, why do you go there? They are supposed to learn English. They could not hold a minute's conversation with me in English. It felt sad because these children could as well go to government schools and study in those schools with me. So there was a reason why we must look at it. I'll tell you the other thing. What has happened is there is a social centrifugation in India. The disadvantaged, the people without voice, the people with no option, they get centrifuged into government schools. Others with a little voice, with a little ability, they go into private schools, even though the quality may not be very different. This is not good for a society. The fabric is fragile. And over the last 10 years, this what's happened, more and more has happened. But I have written recently, much later after the book, I wrote recently that after the pandemic, with livelihoods falling out and with stress on them, I am quite I would stick my neck out and say quite a few of those people will come back to government schools, and government schools have to be prepared now and be very alert and agile to do a very good job and retain them. And those people must say, "Arey, why did we go to private schools? Yahi hote to acha hota." So the first thing was that. The second thing I will come to you, because I don't want to take too much time, then was the fact that each of these teachers had a deep desire to improve themselves. 15 years ago, 17 years ago, when I used to go into the field, 1 out of 20 teachers will write a diary. When we have a newsletter of 7 or 10 pages, they will not be taking the interest to read. This is about 15 years ago. You will collect all of them and you will share the newsletter. But today, when I did my study, many of these teachers were writing diaries. Some of them opened the diary and shared it with me. One of them, in fact, gave me a whole book of an year's diary of 250 pages to me and said, "Sir, आप इसको लीजिए, इसमें अगर आपकी कोई काम की चीज है तो आप लीजिए." So that's how they even gave their personal diary to me and said, "Please take it, sir. If it is of use to the other teachers, please use whatever you want." These diaries are, I tell you, they have spoken from their heart. Why did I miss out that child and not understand the child was going through so much personal trouble in her life? How did I miss it? How can I not miss it tomorrow? Next diary. Why is it that during monsoon, the boys are not coming to school and are kept dry, and the parents are sending the girls to school? Why is it that boys also cannot come to school? Or why is it that girls also cannot stay at home? When will this patriarchal society change? This is what they're writing in a school diary. Third, I am so happy today. I gave a very difficult exercise group task to the children and I told them to be in two groups. I thought that they will struggle with two groups of 15 children each. But my children are so smart and so cooperative, they decided they can't do a group task of 15. So they themselves broke themselves into groups of 5, 5, and 5, did 3 group tasks, collected together and made an integrated group task. The others did the same thing. They came together to me. I am so proud of my children. Another teacher writes, I am having this news bulletin on my board in my school, and I observe how they are writing. With one eye, I observe whether their language is improving, whether they are writing interesting things. But when they write about their concerns for their village and their people, I am very sure that they are learning the right things in their life about being good citizens, responsible citizens, being socially caring. So I found that these teachers, when I talk to them, I'll tell them and compliment them. आज आपने place value इतना अच्छा पढ़ाया. I saw that the children were understanding the concept of place value very well. Children, struggle, young children struggle to find the difference between 3 and 4 and 34 or between 4-digit numbers and 2-digit numbers. आपने इतना अच्छा पढ़ाया. The teacher will never take that compliment easily. She will tell me, sir, 10 साल पहले the way I used to teach and the way I'm teaching now is completely different. I used to be a teacher who used to do rote learning in those days. बच्चों को रटवाती थी, बच्चों को ऐसे ही करवाती थी. फिर मैंने सीखा, मैंने ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स अटेंड किए, मैंने बाकी टीचरों से बातचीत की, मैंने फिर खुद की पढ़ाई की, तब जाके मुझे पता चला कि मुझे किस तरह पढ़ाना चाहिए. तो आप जो आज देख रहे हैं वो टीचर ये नहीं है जो 5 साल पहले या 10 साल पहले थी. So each teacher I spoke to was a journey of self-development, was a journey of education for themselves, was a journey of self-realization for themselves. And I realized that they were heroes for another good reason. These were reflective practitioners. It became my second chapter saying the heroes of my book are reflective practitioners. The third chapter I did is very deeply associated with society in India. I began with my, when I began, I told you that the foundation is established with the vision of a just, equitable, humane, and sustainable society. A school is a microcosm of our society. If you go into a good school, you should somehow see in in a limited way inside the classroom, inside the school, whether there is equity, whether there is equality, whether there is equal opportunity, whether there is a concern and a belief that every child can learn, every child has a right to learn. And I believe that the last child in the classroom must have as much opportunity as the first. And I observed that in these 110 schools that I visited and the teachers I met, they may not be very articulate concepts and jargon of what we mean by equity and equality. लेकिन दिल पे हाथ रख के कह सकता हूं कि each one of them was understanding the principles of equity and equality. That is why my third chapter became equity and equality. Many years ago, I learnt my own lesson of equity and equality when I visited a school in a small village in North Karnataka, Northeast Karnataka. I went to that school. It was a small village of about 250 people, about 40 children, 90% of them scheduled caste people, 90% of them daily wage labor. अगर अगर हालत खराब है तो they won't get that daily wage. अगर हालत सही है तो they will get their earning, whatever. So very poor village. But that school was one of the outstanding schools of Northeast Karnataka that we observed. So I asked Lingappa, the head teacher in those days, Lingappa, मुझे बताइए क्या है आपका सपना क्या है? What do you want? You are a great teacher. What is your sapna? And you people must, we all recognized that for small villages and small teachers in small school like that, a huge dream is that my children must complete class 12 and be able to do a good job in life. So I said, what is your dream, Lingappa? He says, every child who passes my 5th class and goes out of my primary school must complete class 12. And I said, how do you do that? He says, sir, 5वीं के बच्चों के लिए मैं सबकी तैयारी नवोदय विद्यालय के लिए करता हूं. Navodaya Vidyalaya is so difficult to get in because they have a competitive exam. He doesn't care. He says, I just prepare my children and make sure the entire class 5 is ready. When I'm doing class 5, class 4 is observing because I'm only 2 teachers, I'm doing all this. Class 4 also gets prepared for next year. So in this way, he has a running method by which his class 5 children are very well prepared and a number of his children go into Navodaya school. Navodaya में भर्ती होते ही they go through a very good quality education, residential education. But the children who don't qualify for Navodaya, because of this preparation by teachers like Lingappa, they are also very well prepared when they go to upper primary and high school because of their foundational basics. And they prepare beautifully and they do very well. I concluded that equity and equality chapter by showing statistics, very few statistics in the book, they're only stories, but I had to bring in some statistics by saying how many children from these heroic schools actually make it to Navodaya schools, which is a very important indicator of equity and equality. So the third attribute of heroic teachers, I said, is they practice this in such a manner that in every school and in every classroom, you will see equity and equality that you can महसूस कर सकते हैं, आप देख सकते हैं, सुन सकते हैं, देख सकते हैं. The fourth attribute I saw was of teamwork. Many of the schools I visited were small primary schools with 1 or 2 teachers, but I also visited a number of upper primary schools and larger schools where there were 6, 7 teachers. And these 6, 7 teachers formed excellent teams. There is that famous Pygmalion effect, which all management people are aware of, where a person is somehow motivated to expect more of himself, of herself. And the more you expect it of him or her, the more she or he rises to meet that expectation. That's the famous Pygmalion effect. But I saw a variation of the Pygmalion effect here, which is even better and greater. You see, we have lakhs and lakhs of teachers. We have 5.5 million teachers in the country across 1 million schools. Our system is so complex that in a state like Karnataka, we have 50,000 schools. Gujarat will have that many. Rajasthan will have that many. A state like Uttarakhand, being smaller, will have 13, 14,000 schools. But they're so huge that a good teacher can go through an entire life without a shabashi. Without a single shabashi, a teacher can go through an entire life of doing good work. राजस्थान में एक टीचर ने मुझे कहा था, जब मैंने उनको कहा था कि यार बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हो आप, तो शी सेड, छोड़िए सर, अगर जिंदगी में एक बार मेरे सुपरवाइजर से एक एसएमएस आ जाए कि आप अच्छा कर रहे हैं तो मेरे लिए जिंदगी हो जाएगी. Unsung teacher, when Mr. Radia introduced and said the unsung heroes of India, they are the unsung heroes. So these are the teachers we are talking of who are completely unrecognized largely. The system is so big. I'm not blaming anybody. The system is so large that people can do good work without being recognized, without being seen. They become anonymous. They know they are anonymous. But for them, the smile on the child's face and the satisfaction of that illiterate parent in the village saying, "Ha, mera bacha yahan seekh raha," is more than enough for them. When these 6-7 teachers come together in a school, उनके लिए एक जुनून जैसा हो जाता है कि no, we must come together and make the school the best possible school in this district. We must make the school the best possible school, at least in this block. We must make sure that every child has the best possible thing we can provide. They end up putting 2,000, 2,500 rupees every month from your pocket, because you see, in the month of May, in that school, without a fan, a child cannot concentrate. So they say, चलो यार, इस साल हम फैन लगाते हैं, या एक कमरा कम है, चलो कमरा बनवाते हैं, या पानी का फिल्टर लगवाते हैं, या कुछ करवाते हैं. Sometimes the community will contribute, sometimes they put from their pocket. I remember once teachers coming together, they said, yeah, these private schools are going on excursion and our children will never go on excursion because they are not able to afford 2 hot meals a day. Where is the question of excursion? These teachers come together, put in money, and then they take these children all the way to Mount Abu from Sirohi on an excursion and bring them back and say, look, you are no different from others. You also have these facilities. It takes largeness of heart. I told them, many of them, "Aap kaise karte ho?" Said, sir, we earn our monthly salaries because we are able to teach these children in the school. We owe everything to them. For them, if we put a little money like this, why are you calling it a contribution? Don't ever mention this again when you are in the school. So they all come together. I was once in a meeting of these teachers and they were introducing themselves to me. And one person is not introducing himself properly. He says, I'm Dhyan Singh Rawat, मैं यहाँ कई साल से पढ़ाता हूँ, पहले मैं मोल्डा में पढ़ाता था, यहाँ पे मैं हिंदी पढ़ाता हूँ. His colleague then walked away and came back to me with a book. And he completed the introduction and said, sir, Dhyan Singh जी ने आपको पूरा नहीं बताया, ये उनकी किताब है. हमारे यहाँ गढ़वाल में हिंदी ज्यादा चलती है और गढ़वाली कम होती जा रही है. And the proverbs and natural old historic passed down proverbs of Garhwali are getting lost. Dhyan Singh Rawat ran a major project with all the students of the school and their parents and their grandparents and collected all the lost proverbs of Garhwali and brought it together in this book, sir. Please let me complete the introduction of our Hindi teacher at our school properly. So the teamwork is such that that his colleague is more proud of him than he himself can say. So in a team that I observed, modesty I observed of one person, and the pride of the other person in him I observe, or her I observe. In these schools, I observed teamwork. There are stories of teamwork in my book that I thought come together in this chapter called teamwork. The final chapter was for the real mad heroes. The mad heroes are those who take blind risks. They don't care. They say that at any cost, my child must learn. And I didn't know where to place them. Do I place them in first chapter, second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter? So the fourth chapter became heroes. 1 second, let me see what I call. I myself forget what I call them. I call the chapter heroes. They recognize no barriers. It ends with a line which I will quote to you, and I'll go to tell you something. As I was coming out of one of those schools, an old villager met me, must be the grandfather or grandmother of one of the children studying in the school. So she asked me, अच्छा, तो आप इस प्राथमिक शाला से बाहर आ रहे हैं? मैंने कहा, मैं था यहाँ पे, दिन भर मैं यहाँ था, देख रहा था. She said, आपको कैसा लगा? मैंने कहा, अच्छा लगा. He said, सर आप गलत बोल रहे हैं. मैंने कहा, क्यों? He said, सर दुनिया की सबसे अच्छी टीचर वहां पे पढ़ाती हैं. मैंने कहा, दुनिया की सबसे अच्छी टीचर? She said, "Sir, आप नहीं जानते, ये गांव ही तो मेरे लिए एक दुनिया है." So for the villager, that village is his or her world, and the teacher who is providing an education to that child in such disadvantaged circumstances is the world's best teacher for them. One of the heroes in this book takes such risks, I must tell you. I cannot write about it too much because it will compromise safety, but I have touched upon it. There is a village, there is a slightly urban place in this school, in this one of these stories, where there are a number of dons running nefarious activities who pull children into it. The teachers there, the two teachers took a risk of going and saying that children, you will not be there, you will come to school. And they started pulling the children back into the school. Some of the dons sent a message to the teachers saying, ये लोग अपने स्कूल में सारे बच्चों को ले जा रहे हैं, जान प्यारी है तो संभल के रहे. But they don't care. In another place, and this is from Karnataka, because as you all know, we know how much of migration takes place from the very difficult parts of India to cities. We all are very familiar with the harsh realities. But in that village that I visited 2.5 years ago, I realized that half the village has to migrate to Bangalore, Belgaum, and to Bombay for Naukri. When they do that, they take the children with them for 4 months, come back again for 4 months, again take them away for 4 months, with the result that the children's education is destroyed. One of the principals who came there, he was not there earlier as principal, he came there, he observed it and said, what is happening? An entire generation of children's education will be destroyed. What can we do? And he realized the parents have to migrate, otherwise there's no food on the table for them. So he realized, I can't stop the parents from migrating. What can I do? He took such a big risk that it becomes one of the stories in my book. It's a huge risk because it's girls and boys of 9 years, 10 years, and 11 years, and 8 years. He decided to convert his 2 classrooms in the night into dormitory. So in the daytime, it is a school where classes are happening. And in the night, he converted the classrooms into a dormitory so that 30 to 40 children can stay there in the dormitory while their parents are away for 4 months in the cities to earn their bread. And he was able to convince the parents that your children will be safe here. And he was able to convince the community and take ownership and say, boss, ये लोग यहाँ पे रहेंगे, लेकिन आप भी इसका देखभाल कीजिए. His teachers who were his colleagues said, when Achappa can take such a big risk, we must also take risk. So every day, one teacher stays overnight with the children in the dormitory, looking after them and providing them night food also. And in the daytime they teach, and they have one community member also supervise and come. And he also made sure that some of the community members took some children in their houses also. So 30 to 40 children stay in dormitories in the school, and about 10 to 20 children also distribute themselves in the houses of the other communities. This is how he has managed to make sure that his school has 80% attendance and does not fall to 50% attendance. I can go on and on and on, but this is real India, and these are the stories of real India I have captured. Let me conclude by showing you a picture of the book, and if some of you wish to are motivated enough to go and get a copy, it's available on Amazon. So I hope it's visible. I'm showing it in a small screen. The author's name you know, of course, but the picture is, this is the book. It's available on Amazon. Those of you who feel motivated to get a copy, please go to Amazon. Are you able to see, Mr. Radia? Are people able to see this?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Yes, people are able to see. It's very clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank. May I just once again thank all of you. It was a privilege to be with you. I will not forget this for a long time. It was a privilege to participate with you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. It was a wonderful presentation. Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.